The 2024 elections are here. You may be asking yourself, what's at stake? What's on the ballot? Well, very simple. Our community is at stake, and healthcare, education, economic, environmental, and housing justice are all on the ballot. So we're dependent on your vote. In order for government to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, the politics has to get closer to the people. I'm John McCann, and this is the Closer to the People podcast, a production of North Carolina Black Alliance. And it was one of the most humbling things I've ever seen in my life. In a meeting room in a Philadelphia hotel, I'm in the presence of black leaders from black organizations from various parts of the country. I'm talking about front-facing individuals who know what it means to get their hands dirty in order to move and motivate and galvanize people, right? Now, I'm talking about them, not me. I wasn't one of the leaders. I was there with my leaders. But it was still humbling, doggone it, because I watched the black leader who was leading all of these black leaders. I watched him back these people into a corner when he asked, which of you consider yourself to be a black political architect? Now, I can assure you that while some in that meeting room might have studied a little architecture, some probably had a degree in political science, I can guarantee you that not one of them went to school for black political architecture.
When I think about, what it takes to actually move black people, and more importantly, to achieve sort of material condition change for black folks, the role that really matters the most is the black political architect. And so when I say black political architect, what I mean is a person or an individual who organizes their community, and they understand that they have to leverage both their knowledge and their expertise as currency so that they can impact the political arena around them and build enough power to be able to shape and influence how resources and how public policy and how dollars are used to, achieve success or achieve outcomes for black communities. To say it differently, a black political architect is someone who is shaping and influencing the outcomes for black folks by leveraging their expertise and their know-how and understanding who the power players are in the arena that shape black lives.
That was Prentiss Haney. He's the strategic advisor for the Ohio Organizing Collaborative. The training he was leading in that Philadelphia hotel was called Black Shop. You get it? A workshop for and about black people is a black shop. And right on time here when black leaders like those in that Philly meeting room are not only trying to get people to vote on or by November 5th, but also working toward building black power. And they showed up to Philadelphia believing that's what they've been doing out here in these streets. But there was Prentiss, with his exercise of humility, made them wrestle, made them consider whether they're really moving like queens and rooks on this chessboard of life, or are they really just pawns?
Yes, that's right. I mean, a lot of folks do believe they're architects, but oftentimes they tend to fall in the category of pawns or spectators. And when I say a pawn, what I mean is that this person or these set of people, they're doing something that matters. They're making some sort of impact in the world, but it's not driven by what they want. It's driven by the self-interest of someone else, which means that someone else sees that what they do matters and what they do helps move their agenda along, so they enroll them in their agenda, and then they're helping move someone else's agenda. I think about this all the times with the electoral cycle. When it comes to elections, many of how most of us operate is as pawns, because other interests, donors, candidates, other folks, have an interest in us in order to achieve their outcome. And then we end up engaging oftentimes based off of that. And it's not an issue to engage in our democracy. That is ours. We're citizens. We want to engage in our democracy. It's about understanding what do we want? How do we have a mutual self-interest to achieve it and not allow someone else's interest to overshadow where we need to go?
Okay. So that's the pawn, and the spectator is right behind.
Yes, the spectator. The spectator just means, you're irrelevant. You know, you're not even on the chessboard. You're not even, no one even sees you as a threat. You know, oftentimes spectators can oftentimes be loud and vocal, but no one actually sees them as anything worth spending any time on. You have a lot of critiques, you have a lot of things to say, but you have no power and you have no influence. And you definitely don't take responsibility for what's happening in your community. So you definitely don't want to be a spectator either.
Look, man, let's keep it 100. You see my bank account, you see these bills. Whoever gets elected ain't doing nothing about none of that.
You say that like I got money. Look, we up in the sports bar. You saw what I just ordered. Listen, I feel what you're saying. But what about your kids?
What about them?
Always talking about what's happening at your daughter's school.
I don't play by my baby girl, you know that.
There are people running for school board who can do something about it. So stop all that complaining and vote for folks who will do right by your baby girl. And remember when those cops had your son jammed up on some nonsense?
Yeah, that had me shook. But that judge down there, you know, at the courthouse worked it out.
My dude, how you think the judge got up there? She got voted in by people like us. Well, people like me, because you don't vote.
I keep seeing all these ads about the presidential election. I don't even really think about school board races and voting for judges, the races that hit closer to home.
Exactly. So you're voting, right?
All right, I get it. Yeah, I'm voting.
All that complaining. Sound like my wife.
Why are you over here talking about me again?
My fault, baby. Think about this. You're standing in line to vote. It's a long line. You've been waiting a long time. You finally get to the table to get your ballot, only to be told, I'm sorry, but you're not registered to vote. From the start of 2023 through August 2024, county boards of elections in North Carolina removed some 747,000 ineligible registration records from the state's voter rolls. Were you one of them? Better check. Find out at safevoternc.org. In-person early voting starts October 17th and ends 3 p.m. November 2nd. There is same-day voter registration during in-person early voting. The deadline to request an absentee ballot is 5 p.m. October 29th. Election day is November 5th. Details about all of that are at safevoternc.org. Now, you're wondering how come this podcast was late.
I was giving you time to get the last one straight.
Check out past episodes of the Closer to the People podcast at ncblackalliance.org/podcast. That's ncblackalliance.org/podcast. This is the Closer to the People podcast, the Black Shop episode. We've been hearing from Prentiss Haney. He's the strategic advisor for the Ohio Organizing Collaborative. Earlier this year, he led a training about how to become a black political architect, the idea being leading with intentionality in order to move your needle, not somebody else's. And he was trying to get a group of leaders assembled in a meeting room in a Philadelphia hotel to grasp that. And see, don't take this as me complaining, but that's why this country's in the shape that it's in. We got bad leadership. It's their fault, not regular people like you and me, because, I mean, all of us can't be organizers and political architects, so we're off the hook. Am I right? Look, can I get some help here?
Amen.
So those of us not in those big, fancy leadership roles can just stay there and complain. I mean, stay in our lane.
I mean, I will push back that everyone's not an organizer because I believe that everyone vocationally can learn how to unlock the agency in people and help bring them together to take action. But to your question around architect, everyone can be an architect because similar to an organizer, an architect requires risk. It requires you to take courageous risk in real life. You can't think yourself into become an architect. You have to do things that you test and you see if you move the needle, if you don't move the needle. And then architects, what their sort of key characteristic is that they not only have a vision and a direction and self-interest, they take action in places that help them see if they're moving the needle around power or not. And every person can become that.
Mm-hmm. The people in this room were primarily black people, and you were in particular teaching us how to be black political architects. Can they only be black people?
Oh, no, absolutely not. The truth of the matter is that most of the architecture for black people in America are architected by other people who are not black, who are thinking about how they leverage us, our resources, our time. They are thinking about how they can extract more from us than build things for us. So it is absolutely true that any person can be an architect. If you're not an architect yourself building it, you're in somebody else's architecture. Someone else sees you as a part of that. But on the flip side, no matter what you look like or where you come from, anybody can become an architect. And then it's really about, is your mission really about moving a constituent that you believe in, that you're a part of, that you have some skin in the game around? And that could be any person of any race or creed.
I mean, did he or did he not just take away every excuse about getting involved? This has been the Closer to the People podcast, a production of North Carolina Black Alliance. Let me know what this show can do to get closer to you when you reach out and touch me at john@ncblackalliance.org, and check us out online at ncblackalliance.org. That's ncblackalliance.org. Until next time, keep in mind, a government of, by, and for the people has to get closer to the people. Voting not only is our right, it's also our power. We're counting on you to encourage 3 friends and family members to vote before November 5th. Text them, call them, DM them, tag them, because more black voters means more black power. And no one has more power than us to protect our community. So encourage 3 friends and family members to vote today. Voting is exponential. Those who represent us are determined by those who show up, especially when we show up in numbers. Among the impacts from Hurricane Helene are potential hardships for voters. Election Day is November 5th. In-person early voting in North Carolina starts October 17th and ends November 2nd. Absentee voting is underway, yet those impacted by the storm may wonder how they're supposed to cast an absentee ballot when their mailboxes are washed away or compromised roads are keeping the mail from getting delivered. The State Board of Elections has answers by phone at 919-814-0700 or through emailing elections.sboe@ncsbe.gov. A really good online resource is ncsbe.gov/Helene, HELENE. It's where voters can find out, for example, whether their local elections office is closed. So that's ncsbe.gov/Helene. North Carolina Black Alliance remains closer to the people by making sure the ballot box is within reach of the people.